Hi, my name is Dr. Ginny Baro, your GCA host on GCA Studios, brought to you by GameChangeAgency.com. I'm also the CEO and founder of Fearless Women at Work, an executive coaching and career strategy company. As you can see, today my guest is Jane Hanson. I'm so excited to have you, Jane. Welcome.
It's good to be here with you, Ginny.
Thank you, Jane. Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for your generosity and having this courageous conversation with us today about a very timely topic, communication. And I know you are now a coach, and I'll tell people a little bit more about you shortly. But today we're going to be specifically speaking about 3 keys to great communication.
Right.
And I know you're going to add a little twist, which is about the communication between the genders, which is also very timely.
It sure is. It's so crucially important for us in this day and time. I'll tell you that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So for those of you who don't know Jane, which I don't know where you've been, but just in case you exist, let me just say that Jane has 30 years of experience as a journalist and coach. She began as an anchor and correspondent for NBC New York, and in 2003, she became the station's primary anchor and for the local programming and the host of Jane's New York, which I used to watch, by the way. She covered events ranging from the tragedy of 9/11 to the Yankees victory parades to Wall Street and Washington. And she has interviewed presidents, celebrities, and people from all walks of life. Jane is the winner of 9 Emmy Awards and has been the recipient of numerous awards for her service to the community. It's an honor to have you here, Jane, and for you to share your insights with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's fun.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Do this from the comfort of our home office.
Look at this. You can't beat this, right?
At its finest.
This is self-created, self-made. I love it.
We kind of all are.
I know. Well, I always like to start with your why, Jane. I know you've been doing this for a very long time, and you didn't do something different. You're actually still doing communication. And so I'm curious to learn about what is your why?
Well, here's what really happened is as I continued in the television news business and times changed and frankly, I got a little bit older and I know they were always looking for younger people. And consistent at the same time, I would do these interviews with people and we'd be done. Our time was up because time in television and broadcasting is finite. And time would be done and people would say, I didn't get to say what I wanted to say. And I say it because I took them down a path. Maybe I found something more interesting than what their message was, but they might have been there because they'd written a book, or maybe they were trying to explain some financial thing, or maybe whatever reason they were there for, they felt like they didn't get to do it because I, as the interviewer, was interested in something else. And so that, and just this idea of helping people tell their stories, because all of life is telling a story.
It is.
I want to help them tell their stories better. And it's a really, I think, unique skill to journalists especially. And if we can take that in today's world where a lot of traditional media is being bypassed and people just want to tell their story. And I want to help them tell it efficiently and concisely and poignantly and compellingly and in the best way possible.
Engaging, exactly.
So that's why I do what I do.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, thank you so much for that. So let's dive right in. Let's talk about these 3 keys that are so important when it comes to communication. What's the first one?
First one is audience. Now, I know that seems really simple because you think, well, I've got a message and I'm just going to tell it. But the truth is, you have to figure out who is your audience. Do you know what WIIFM means?
I don't.
What's in it for me?
Oh, with them. You're with them. Yes, yes. What's your with them?
Whoever you're speaking to, they're thinking in their head, well, what's in this for me? Just like people who are watching us right now are going, well,
what's in it for me?
Yeah,
right.
Why should I listen?
Right.
So you always have to think about what are they going to take away? What's the takeaway? What is it information they need to know? Is it information they should know? Is it something that's going to entertain them? You really need to think about who is my audience. I am telling you, I have worked with so many people and they will they'll create all these messages, but then I'll say, well, who are you talking to? And they'll go, well, it doesn't matter. I'll go, yes, it does.
Yes, totally.
For example, in television, I did a number of shows. For example, I did the early morning news, and there was a completely different audience of people then. I knew they were rushing around, they're getting ready for work, they're listening more than they're watching. So I knew that if I had a great piece of video, I'd say, okay, stop what you're doing, you need to watch this.
Right.
Whereas for my own show, the one you referred to called Jane's New York, that was on in the evenings, and that was an opportunity for people to actually pay full attention, and we could really work on different aspects. And then sometimes a show, like I did an afternoon show for a while that was geared towards, it was mainly for women, and it was really entertainment and celebrity driven. So I knew my audience then were women who were in front of a television set in the middle of the afternoon.
Right.
So you really have to think, who are these people and what are they interested in? And I can tell you consistently, don't think about it.
So let's unpack that a little bit and talk about in the context of an organization, right? Because this channel is about helping leaders gain the tools and the strategies to develop so that we can create a more engaging workforce, right? Communication is absolutely key. And in this case, when it comes to audience, what comes to mind for me is my audience is the people that I'm trying to influence, the people that I'm trying to inspire to do certain work, the people that I'm trying to communicate certainty to so that they feel safe and don't feel threatened by news that I'm sharing. So tell me how you would curtail or customize your communication as it relates to audience within an organization. And what are some of the things you teach your organizational clients?
Well, I spend a lot of time on leadership. And so you have to think what makes a great leader. And in my opinion, one thing that makes a great leader is somebody who's a good listener. Because I don't think you can lead well if you don't listen well. And if you make a lot of decisions without listening to the people around you, then I think that's a problem. So I would gear some of what I would be doing to how do I get people to listen to each other better and to ask each other great questions. So that's one part of thinking about your audience and gearing it towards them. Another part is to giving them information that they might not know. There are tons of, for example, there are tons of new studies out there that can give you really great tips or really great just information that gives you better understanding. And when you understand people better, then you can deal with them more wisely.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's about being able to give them good tips, things that they can take away and actually use and influence. And then also about skills. Like what tone of voice, I do a lot of work in body language, which will be something we'll talk about in a minute.
Sure.
But how do you use all of the gifts that you've been given, the way that you speak, the way that you look, the way that you hold your body? How can I use that in a more efficient and a more a manner that resonates more? So all of that, I think, fits into the guidelines of, not the guidelines, that's a wrong word, fits into kind of the parameter of what it is that you want to do.
And it's interesting that you bring that up because I know that depending on your leadership style, different leaders have different beliefs around how to be effective. For example, some leaders believe that if they're very aloof and that they hardly communicate and that they don't deal with, quote unquote, the little people, that gives them more prestige and it gives them more clout. Others believe that walking the hallways, as some of my previous guests have, and I have shared, that helps them connect with the employees and builds trust, which indeed it does. So all of it has to do with communication as well. Absolutely. Your body language, right? As you walk through the hallways, are you open or are you just, kind of...
Are you approachable or are you not?
Exactly.
The leader that you described there at the very beginning sounds to me like the great Oz and the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain. Don't you dare approach them. And I don't happen to agree with that leadership style. I don't think it's effective and I don't think it works. I
agree because I think when we are the recipients of that leadership style, it's not very warm and fuzzy, right?
Well, it also makes you afraid to approach somebody with new ideas. It makes you, for fear that you won't be heard, or for fear that's my little buzzer, that's my little ringer.
No problem.
Turn it off. But so I do think that you become fearful, and who wants to be fearful of their boss?
Right. That would not be a good strategy if you are a manager, to have your employees fear you.
Right.
For sure. For sure. So let's go into the second one. What is the second tip? I know. So the first one was our the way that we focus on our audience so that we can hone our message accordingly, provide the information that they need, leave them with value, and then we move on to
our message, our content.
The actual message. Okay.
Yes, and messages are interesting because, again, I believe in customized. I believe that we probably have the same message for almost any audience, but we have to customize it for that audience. You're not going to deliver a message in the same way to 70-year-old people that you're going to deliver it to 20-year-old people. You're going to use different words. You're going to create different stories to surround it. You're going to find ways that will resonate. So when it comes to creating a message, there's a really simple formula. And I have a partner that I work with a lot, Mary Sevilla, one of my former co-anchors, and she came up with this method that she calls the 3x3. Okay. And what it is a headline. So you have your headline, and then you have 3 points. And your headline, by that, it's a term we use a lot in news, but it's really, what's my main takeaway? What do I want the audience to either walk out the door or turn off the broadcast thinking? What is my main overview? And then you have 3 points that you prove. Yes, with either stories, analogies, or facts.
I like that.
When I say stories, the reason they're so important is facts are retained, but stories are retold. I mean, how many times, think about how many things in this world where it's not mass marketing that works, it's word of mouth.
Correct.
And word of mouth? Word of mouth is one person telling a story to another person, to another person, to another person, to another person. So this word of mouth or storytelling is really crucial. I mean, think about it. We've been doing it since we first started speaking. It's
ancient.
How we tell history, by telling stories.
That's right.
Work.
That's right.
Through. So it's really important that that you take your messaging and you refine it. I've worked with so many people where you walk in the door and I'll say, okay, what's your message? And they'll go, it's blah, 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 blah. They've got 9 or 10 of them. And in messaging math, what's 9 times 1?
9.
In messaging math, it's 0. 9 messages, and you deliver 9 messages one time, people are going to recall exactly
nothing.
Oh,
great point.
Yeah, so if you have, let's say you have 3 messages, and if you say them each 3 times, there are probably 1, maybe 2 of them might resonate. So you really want to focus on your core message, and then how do I deliver that so that it gets reinforced?
I got it.
The content. And then
the last one, tip number 3, and we can then kind of put it, bring it all together as it relates to gender.
Exactly. So style, each of us is unique. And there are some very interesting studies that, by style, I mean body language. And I want you to think about body language as this innate thing that we are all born with. Long before we had a spoken language, which was only 160,000 years ago, we communicated by the way that we used our bodies. We would grunt, or we would move, or we would do things. And believe it or not, we still do it. You make judgments every single day about people when they walk in the door before they utter a word.
Absolutely. Are they hunched over? Are they standing with their shoulders back? Do they look confident, or do they look afraid or shy?
Right. Sure. Their eye contact, really important. And obviously, one of the little tips about doing these things is we don't want to, I can't look into your eyes right now. I
know.
A little button at the top of my screen.
I know.
I'm looking at you. So you've got to think about eye contact. Eyes are the way to the soul. So there was 2 studies done, actually, one by USC and one done by UCLA, sorry. And,
it's okay.
They took a speech and they gave it to 100 people. Same exact speech, and sent it out into sent them out into the world. And then they recorded the responses and the reaction and how it resonated with the audiences.
Yes.
And what they discovered was what they discovered was that there was such a huge difference in the way the very same words were received because of the way they were delivered.
Interesting.
And their takeaway from that was, in terms of credibility, because they're measuring quote unquote credibility, their takeaway was 55% of credibility was based upon your body language.
Interesting.
33%, I think or is it 38? It's a total of 93% is all about how you said it, how you used your voice, and how you used your body versus the content.
Interesting.
Only 7% was the content. Now, I'm not trying to tell you that content doesn't matter, because if you don't have anything to say, it doesn't matter how you say it.
That's true.
But the bottom line is, it's really important that we think about how we say things. And so that is just crucial. So it's audience, content, and your style. Those
wonderful
things are the components of great communication.
Well, I'm learning a lot by listening. Yeah, I'm learning a lot. And, it's one of those things where you've heard pieces of it, and I think you're bringing a different context to it. And also, like stories, for example, we've always heard people remember stories. They don't remember facts. So if you're going to give people facts, give them to them in a story.
Right, because our brains are not hardwired to remember. Like if I were say to you, I went to the grocery store today, I bought 10 boxes of detergent at $2.49 a piece, which is a savings of 20%. And then after that, I bought water, and they had Poland Springs on sale for $3.33. And I bought a whole case, which amounted to $34. What are you going to remember from that data?
Right, that you went shopping.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it.
And a huge bunch of my clients are scientists, and they have the hardest time because they've got so many facts and figures and
to share.
Take that into a story form, and that really,
that's art.
Yeah, but it's so great when they get it there, because some of the greatest stories in the world come from these scientists and what they're discovering.
Absolutely.
Really cool.
I am a huge fan of TED, and I am actually getting ready to do my TED Talk. I think I shared that with you when we were speaking earlier. And so as I watch the different TED Talks, it is fascinating how these scientists who are studying the brain, or, who are doing all kinds of experiments and learning new things about relationships and, heart math and leadership, how important it is to be able to relay those facts and figures in a way that resonates with the audience.
Yeah, and there's some really interesting stuff out there now that has to do with what social media is doing to our brains. And it's about neurons and all kinds of things. So you take a look at that. There might be something to incorporate in some of what.
Thank you for that. So let's now bring it all together as it relates to communication between the genders. What is that extra layer that is happening? And I know you and I were also sharing the fact that with all that has happened since October of last year and the Me Too revolution, and women coming out of shame and actually sharing their truth, and we were discussing how that's really going to change dynamics in the workplace.
Oh my gosh, I can't even tell you some of the things that are going on. I do, along with my partner Mary, that I was talking about before, Mary Sevilla Communications. We actually do gender communication workshops now, simply because it's become so crucial.
Absolutely.
Number of top level executives who are concerned, especially male executives who are at the top of the heap, and they may have a woman that's their second in command, and they say things to me like, I don't think that I'm going to take this woman out to dinner alone because I'm concerned about what the perception is going to be. But I have no qualms about taking my male second in command out to dinner. And so, again, all that, what I worry about is this kind of backlash about women. It's not so hard to get to a certain place, and now we're going to have trouble because people are going to say, oh, no. So that's what it's all about. Whether you like it or not, men and women communicate differently. There are
absolutely
tons of studies out there. There's studies that show things like male managers don't give female reports as much feedback because they're concerned that they're going to be emotional. And so they just don't do it.
Right.
And women, on the other hand, maybe we are a little more emotional. Maybe we need to think about how do we cut that back? How do we make sure that we're cool and calm? And we have some techniques for helping people to do that.
Right.
Because it's both sides. Both sides have to work together.
Right. But I think what you hit on, Jane, is really important, which is because we have different communication styles. I have learned that in a corporate setting, what tends to happen, at least what happened to me, is that you tend to adapt your communication style to the predominant style.
Right.
So over time, however, it's almost like trying to push a big beach ball underwater.
Right.
You can't fight your nature.
Right.
And so understanding as a leader that we do have different styles and becoming accepting of that diversity, I think that's really important.
I think you're absolutely right about that. And that's, I'll give you a little example of somebody that asked me to help them with a problem the other day. They had a woman, there was a younger woman, a 30-something woman, and a man who was in his late 60s that were peers in this law firm. And one of them said to the others, or one of the younger woman, for a long time, the man had been calling her kiddo, but he calls everybody in the office kiddo. And she, for a couple of years, felt that it was demeaning and didn't like it. And when all of this stuff broke, she then went to HR and said, I don't want him doing that anymore. Now, my thought with her was, if it bothered you the first time he said it, why didn't you say to him, I appreciate the fact that, and I want to learn from you because you obviously are well experienced, you're a very valuable person here. I would love to have you as a mentor, but I feel demeaned when you use that phrase. And I would really appreciate it if you didn't do it anymore. But instead of not doing that, she let it get under her skin for quite some time.
Yeah, and you know what, Jane? It's interesting because there's a lot of intimidation, right? When you are dealing with someone who's senior.
Right.
And I think what's happening is that now we're realizing that we can speak up compassionately.
Right.
We don't need to do it in a way that is scandalous.
Exactly. And we also don't need to take everything as having some hidden meaning to it. I mean, sometimes it does. But how many times in your life have you learned that you let something really bother you and you don't take action on it immediately, and then it's like an itch that keeps
it festers. Absolutely.
But if you dealt with it right off the bat,
yeah,
it's dissipated and it's gone.
So we need to own it, right? We need to really own it and take a step back. I always say sleep on it, right. And then come up with a strategy to communicate effectively. I always say people can read your mind, and if you don't tell them what is bothering you, somebody may do the same thing to both of us. It may bother me, and you may be perfectly fine with it. Exactly. The person who's doing it has no clue that it bothers me.
Right.
So the only way that, it's my responsibility to be able to say it. Now, there is a certain, as I mentioned, depending on where you are in your career, how comfortable you feel, how confident you are, how senior you are, right? Those factors, I believe, play a big role in whether or not you take the risk. I know I was talking to a young woman the other day about the fact that she feels disrespected by her female boss. Yet there's another colleague that is at the same level she is, and the female boss loves him, gushes over him. And, it's one of those conversations where do you sit down with your boss and say something to the effect that, I feel that there's a discrepancy in how you treat both of us. And it's obviously a bias, right? Yeah. But I guarantee you that manager may not even realize she's doing it.
Well, and sometimes, if somebody's got a really sunny personality and they're a lot of fun to be around, it's easier to have a relationship with them than it is with someone who's not, or who's shy, or who's not outgoing, doesn't have that same kind of vivaciousness.
Sure.
there's so many different factors in play here. And I think that we really need to foster understanding. I think that's at the heart of it, is foster understanding, and don't walk in the door with the belief that it's us against them.
Absolutely not.
And I was in a very tough business for a long time. That, for the most part, at the top of the heap, it was run by men. There are some people who say it was a man's playground, and I don't mean anything sexual by that. I just mean that they ran the show.
Right.
And I think that women who are older have learned how to deal with some things that maybe they just slid under the rug because they felt like it was the only way to get by. They had a challenge. If I challenge this, say 25 or 30 years ago, I may be ending my career.
That's right.
And so the road they took was the one of not speaking out.
That's right.
And I think it's too late to speak out about that now.
Right. And you know what Oprah was saying at the Golden Globes, right, is that you had to feed your family.
Exactly.
So the fear is that you're going to get fired, you're going to keep your mouth shut.
Right. And now I think there's an opportunity for women to actually speak up and speak out. And I think that's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
I just don't want to see men who don't deserve it get hurt in the process.
Absolutely. And I think the golden rule that I've always followed, and I've never had, luckily haven't had any blow-ups, is that if you communicate with respect, regardless of the gender, you just communicate respectfully and professionally, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Men or women.
Yes, I absolutely think that's true. And be conscious that there are differences. And one of the other things that's interesting is men love to come up with solutions right away. And we, on the other hand, we like to think about it and nurture,
ponder, ruminate,
and say, well, now let's think about all the possible solutions.
Right.
The whole thing. And the truth, that doesn't mean that either one is wrong. It's just
they're complementary.
Yes, exactly. And so if we can both put our heads together, we can say that's a great solution, but let's think about how we're going to get there first.
Absolutely.
And I think it's pretty cool.
A perfect example of that is when we're going to a party, right? So your partner is concerned with getting to the party, like getting from point A to point B as effectively and quickly as possible. And we're thinking, well, what are we going to bring? Right? We should stop at the wine store and pick up a bottle of wine.
Yeah. We don't have time for that.
Perfect example, right? This is how we complement each other, right? So I think we need to take advantage of that. So I know we're out of time. We ran over 5 minutes. It's 25 minutes already. Can you believe it?
I love it.
I had a blast. So Jane, how can people who may want to work with you reach you?
Okay, Jane at Jane Hanson, HANSON.com. And that is my website as well. And they can also go to Civillo Communications, and that's CIVIELLO, which is Mary's website. And that's where you find out about the gender communications. So
I love it. Great topics, very timely. And people can reach me at fearlesswomenatwork.com. Jane, I had so much fun. Thank you so much for giving me of your time, your insights, and I look forward to connecting again soon. I'm going to follow up with you about working with you.
That would be fun. I would love it. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Sounds great. Bye.